liquid gold, and like gold, it has the ability to transform lives. For dependent nations, this product is said to be more of a curse than a blessing. However, its discovery here in Lagos State could potentially drive in millions of dollars in investment. I am Didi Akinyelure, and this is Destination Lagos. The African economy relies on oil and gas for the majority of its export earnings. Nigeria is a major player in the oil and gas scene and an attractive market for international oil companies. Over the years, the West African nation has enjoyed the oil boom, relying heavily on the sector for its revenue. In recent times, the drop in oil prices has put a strain on the country, forcing Nigeria to seek ways to diversify its sources of revenue.
Nigeria has historically had pretty much almost 90% of its foreign exchange earnings from oil exports. So it's had a significant impact on the government's fiscal position. And we're seeing it in terms of potential spending that could be made in key areas of the economy, such as infrastructure, etc. So it's been a major economic headache for the government. And it really has accounted for a lot of the economic stress and distress we've seen, both also in terms of the value of the naira to the dollar. As we know, oil exports are dollar denominated, so it's had a huge impact on Nigeria's forex availability and its resources.
Nigeria is recognized as a major exporter of crude oil, yet the country imports refined oil. Existing refineries do not operate at full capacity, and efforts to build new refineries in the past have fallen through.
The real strategy around building a refinery for an investor in that sector is not just about the refinery as a standalone structure. It's also about the ancillary infrastructure that you need in order to be able to not just supply your crude oil as feedstock into the refinery, but also offtake that crude oil either through pipelines, offtake the products that come out of that refinery through pipelines, as well as benefit from a liberalized market, which till now we haven't had, certainly for PMS. And I think it's also been the perception of the opportunities in the midstream and downstream sector, given all the issues we've had around foreign exchange for those who import. So when you take all of that as a whole, investors just historically have not seen refineries as a lucrative and viable option when it comes to energy sector investments as a whole. That is, of course, changing. It's changing because the government itself is recognizing that its own refinery infrastructure needs rehabilitation, and that perhaps the government sector needs to perhaps make room for the private sector to come and develop in an area of expertise that it has had a good track record. Companies like IOCs all over the world have been developing refineries. It hasn't been an attractive prospect in Africa, and also because prices have been fixed downstream in many countries, including Nigeria, up until recently. So I think we're now seeing a potential opening in the market for refinery investment, but it wouldn't happen overnight because you need to fund it, and banks themselves need to be confident that both the regulatory framework and the other things that would make that investment viable are in place.
Where challenges are identified, opportunities exist. And in Nigeria, refining of liquid gold has been identified as the next big opportunity.
Look at what's happening in the market right now. A lot of the Nigerian independents are actually quite interested in refining. And what's driving it is two things. Number one, the fact that, of course, it's not quite easy to export your oil anymore because of the militancy in the Niger Delta. That militancy ensures that a lot of oil is actually trapped in fields right now because the pipelines are not available. So the refinery becomes a good opportunity for them to actually monetize their crude oil reserves, because then you add value and then you get more money, and you actually get your money from within the country as well. That's one. The other angle to the refinery development is the fact that it also provides jobs. It provides support for the economy. It domesticates the monetization of crude oil within the economy and ensures that most of the value is added before the oil is actually shipped out. Of course, it's also another means of earning revenue as well too. So it just means that these companies could actually also get some revenue from exporting the oil as well too.
For Nigerian billionaire Aliko Dangote, tapping into the identified opportunities in the energy space in Nigeria is a no-brainer. Nigerians eagerly await the completion of Dangote Group's refinery in 2017.
The capacity of the refinery is about 650,000 barrels per day. Nigeria, as we speak today, still consumes under 350,000 barrels per day. So that refinery clearly exceeds our demand and will also provide supplies to the rest of the West African region. I imagine the entire Gulf of Guinea, the coastline, those coastal countries will definitely get a lot of supply from the Dangote refinery. So that's talking about export possibility in terms of revenues, from dollar revenues. It's also talking about the fact that we should also address the perennial, occasional fuel scarcity, which thankfully we've not experienced so far in the last few months. I think it's also going to be a good one for the government as a whole, because again, it means that the refinery segment shifts almost entirely from the government to the private sector, because then you have the largest refinery in the hands of a private individual. So that should make the refinery more competitive. We're still going to see a lot of small refineries as well, still coming in, modular refineries here and there, which would also compete. And competition is always good for the market in terms of prices. I think that would be fantastic for the country as well.
While many states in Nigeria face hard times due to the country's macroeconomic difficulties, Lagos, Nigeria's most cosmopolitan city, seems to be beating the odds. The city is set to benefit from the Dangote Group's investment in the energy sector. Dangote is building an $11 billion refinery, and this could take Lagos into the economic heavens.
It's going to become a key source of supply for the Southwest region because one of the things that's really influenced petroleum product prices has been transportation and distribution. So if you have a refinery that serves the Southwest to start with, I think it's probably going to bring down costs because we now have a greater amount of refinery produce that is produced locally and not just imported and then sold locally. And I think for the rest of Nigeria, really, it's a no-brainer. It's going to add to our capacity. That means consumption itself will increase because now there is more supplies in the market and hopefully cheaper supplies. And if the refinery also develops at a time where other supporting infrastructure such as pipelines, jetties, storage tanks are developing, I think Nigeria could really be entering a season where it becomes a major producer of petroleum products, not just for its own domestic consumption, but potentially with a bit of access to supply to the region and actually gain that position as a regional hub for the downstream industry. And I think would also encourage other investments of a similar nature.
Dangote is also planning to build a fertilizer plant and a gas plant in Lagos, with the investment in the city expected to create thousands of jobs.
We know that the future is gas, but we'll be happy to see that the gas comes from under the soil of Lagos. But in the meantime, maybe we can't achieve that. What Dangote is doing, and this is why it is significant, Dangote is laying two pipelines, one to bring the crude from the Niger Delta and the other to bring the gas. The capacity of the pipeline can bring gas enough that can power about 12,000 megawatts of electricity. Lagos, at best, we use maybe about 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. So it is not impossible that while we achieve our own energy security for Lagos, Lagos will soon be in a position in the future to give power to the national grid instead of taking power from it. So that's significant for us. It's significant for Nigeria.
With international oil prices down over 50% from where they were 2 years ago, oil-dependent nations like Nigeria have felt the pinch. Nigeria has lost billions of dollars in oil revenues, and recent attacks on the country's pipelines have added to the strain.
I don't really see any short-term pickup in that, partly because we continue to see disruptions to production in the Niger Delta. So you have that combination of falling production and falling revenues. And it's really a twin dilemma for the country and how the country moves forward.
There is some light at the end of the tunnel, as oil has been discovered in the city of Lagos. Efforts which started over 25 years ago have placed Lagos in the league of oil-producing states.
Here is a sample of the crude oil found in Lagos State. This could make a significant impact to the growth of the economy.
Yinka Folawiyo Petroleum has been looking for this crude oil for the past 25 years. And this year they announced the discovery. And with this discovery, it puts the state in a position to join the club of oil-producing states in Nigeria.
Lagos now is now the 11th oil-producing state. So what I mean, we're now entitled to the 13% derivation.
We envisage a lot of exploration activities going forward. We'll be working with the federal government very closely to make sure more oil fields are allocated to interested investors, probably through the bidding rounds. We know that will come up, if not later this year, it will likely happen next year. Following the discovery of crude oil in Lagos, what the state has done is to set up its own oil and gas corporation. We call it Ibile Oil and Gas Corporation, and that is going to be our intervention vehicle to do oil and gas business. So we are not just going to be beneficiaries of oil discovery, we are going to be major participants.
With the government calling for the diversification of sources of its revenue in the wake of the fall in oil prices, efforts are also being made to develop the mining sector in the state.
We are following a process, and we are at the first stage of a three-phased process. The first stage is to determine all the solid minerals that exist under the soil of Lagos. And we started that process last year on the Lagos East. We are continuing to do the Lagos West. By early next year, there will be an area surveillance that will give us a lot of data as to what kind of mineral deposits we have in Lagos. When we finish this first phase of determining what is under our soil, then we can now build a strategy around it and see those ones that are viable, those ones that are deep down under the ground, those ones that are on the surface, and what those things can be used for. Sometime by middle of next year, we should be in that position. And then we can bring out a document and then go for a solid minerals summit, in which case we showcase to the world, this is what Lagos has done, this is what we've been able to find under our soil, this is how valuable we think it is, and then we're inviting investors to come and work with us to put us in a position to put a strategy around it, bring them to the fore, and then probably generate a lot of revenue and employment from that.
For the average Lagosian, living without 24/7 electricity is a norm.
Homes and businesses survive on sporadic electricity and rely on generators and inverters to get by. However, for some communities in Lagos, living in total darkness has been the reality for years, and this triggered the attention of the Lagos state government.
There were some communities in this Lagos that have been off the national grid for upward of 6 years to 16 years. A case in point was the case of 68 communities at Ibejuleki local government. They've been off the national grid for 6 years, and we've been able to take electricity to them, deploying a dedicated 33 kV line from Ajah to Eleko.
While this is good news for the Ibejuleki communities, other communities in Lagos patiently wait their turn.
We are doing exactly the same thing around Semeboda in Badagry, the Lagos West end of the state. The Seven Border community, about 36 of them. They've been up the national grid for 16 years. We've commenced that project. We should finish it by end of September, and then we would connect them to the grid, and they will also have access to electricity.
The electrification project is a key part of the Lagos State Government's Light Up Lagos project. The government is on a mission to light up all major roads in the state, and the efforts made so far have improved security and encouraged night commerce.
Commuters can travel at night now, so you can decide to work later hours in the office. You can decide to stay out later at parties, so that because you know that you're safe, you can go from your home or from your offices back to wherever, you can commute freely because the lights do come on at night and the roads are well lit. Then another aspect is the nighttime economy. It's improved tremendously because you find out that the markets stay open longer, so the traders can actually trade till late at night. People that work late, like I do, you find out that you can leave your office at 7 o'clock and still go to the market to trade or to buy whatever you need. And the safety aspect of it is ensured.
Damaged street lights have been repaired and major highways, bridges and roads lit.
Now we have about 36,000 streetlights, and in this second year of the administration, we are looking to do close to 20,000 new streetlights. So that will take it to the region of about 50,000.
The lack of 24/7 power could be a thing of the past in Lagos State, as the next phase of the Light Up Lagos project aims to provide non-stop electricity to businesses and homes in the city.
That's a lot of work, because it's a program that plans to put Lagos on the 24 hours power supply, taking it area by area, using the embedded off-grid power program to extend power to businesses and homes in Lagos. The government is working with the private sector. We are working with the 2 distribution companies in Lagos. We are working with some generation companies. Egbe Power, which is the largest in Nigeria, is a part of that committee. We're working with Siemens. We have Schneider on our committee, and we also have General Electric, and we have very smart lawyers too. So we've been reviewing the laws. We've been working for about 8 months, and we believe that in the next 2-3 months, we should start implementation.
Part of what we've done in the life of this administration is that in Egbe, we've been able to carve out a 220 megawatt generating system that supplies Lagos on a dedicated basis. It's devoted only to Lagos. Both Eko and Ikeja, they enjoy a share of that power, and they are supplying to their customers currently. The federal government appreciates, and that I can say without any doubt, the fact that if we're able to power Lagos, you would have succeeded in powering half of Nigeria, most especially from the economic point of view. Lagos is where the market is, Lagos is where the economy is, Lagos is where commerce is. So if Lagos it's well with Lagos, it's well with Nigeria invariably. So there is a conscious, deliberate strategy and effort to ensure that Lagos has electricity fairly quickly.
For Nigeria and all its cities, power is said to be the key to the long-term sustainable growth of the economy. Following 2 sessions of consecutive negative growth, the country is in a recession. The realization of the nation's power agenda could significantly turn things around. The steps towards 24/7 electricity started over 3 years ago, following the decision to privatize the power sector. And the journey so far has been an expensive one.
Quite a number of companies, including mine, have been investing heavily in revamping the sector and trying to get everything right again. I'll give you some instances. In Egbe, for instance, at the point of acquisition, Egbe was doing between 380 and 400 megawatts. And today we have available to give to the system 1,100 megawatts. It cost us a lot of money, about $380 million was expended to rehabilitate the plant. get the control systems running, and prepare the plant to be able to receive sufficient gas to deliver power to the people.
The road has also been a tasking one, especially in recent times, as Nigeria's power sector has faced challenges ranging from pipeline vandalism to the country's inability to draw in investments into the sector.
In February this year, the power sector in Nigeria recorded the highest level of energy, which was 5,074 megawatts. Unfortunately, because of lack of investment as desirable by the sector, that dropped and we're where we shouldn't be, both in terms of gas supply as well as the power available to the people. The militancy activity has really adversely affected the system, pipeline vandalism, but more specifically with regards to investment itself. The opportunities in the power sector are huge. They are unbelievably huge in Nigeria. The starting point is the quantum of energy we have available to deploy in Nigeria. Whereas Nigeria is doing today, as I speak now, 3,729 megawatts against a population of averagely 180 million. That tells you there is a gap.
Lagos is a city that enjoys over 1,000 hours of sunlight a year. The Lagos state government identified solar and other forms of renewable energy as possible alternative sources of power.
Renewable energy is a major component of our energy mix. For us, we are fairly experienced in renewable energy with respect to solar. We've been working with the UK DFID, I guess, for the past 3 to 4 years. And we've been able to power about 186 schools in the local communities that are off-grid. And we've also been able to do up to close to 20 primary health centers at the local levels.
Aside from what we've done in the secondary schools and the primary health care centers, what we've also looked into is how we can power the streetlights with from a solar farm. So we actually have one of our streets now. There's a pilot going on where we're actually powering the entire street from a solar farm. So if that is successful, we're just going to implement it and try and replicate it in areas where we find out that they're suitable for this kind of thing.
Renewable energy is something that a lot of us are mounting and working on to see that we don't have a one solution arrangement for a system, and then if there is a problem, everybody goes into darkness. We don't want that, so we're seeking alternatives so that should there be any problem similar to the one we're confronting, we can rely on alternative sources. So whoever wants to come into this sector using a renewable alternative energy, that's something that is begging for attention.
Lagos State could benefit significantly from its independent play of the power sector. The city presents opportunities for discerning investors in its energy space.
The energy mix and the energy security is coming together because on the Lagos East, you have Dangote building the largest refinery in Africa on the Lagos East of our state. Then on the Lagos West, we already found crude oil. And within the Lagos Central, we have the tank farms, we have the financial institutions that would make a lot of oil and gas projects to be bankable. So we are pretty confident that with respect to energy security for Lagos State in the next 5 years, 10 years, it's going to be a state of tremendous opportunities. We see massive impact, positive on the GDP, and we also envisage a situation where investors can come. This is the time to come.
The success of the energy sector in Lagos State lies in the government's ability to attract foreign direct investment into the state. The government is keen to walk the path taken by countries who have turned their challenges into success stories.
I am very, very interested in knowing how countries that share sort of similar experiences with Nigeria have moved from where they were to becoming, big successes in terms of attracting FDIs. So we'll be visiting about 6-7 countries like Singapore, Mauritius, Rwanda, and co, who have recorded fantastic success stories as far as attracting FDIs. goes. So we want to go and learn from their experience to know how they've done it in terms of what kind of tax incentives and other incentives do they give to their investors. How are they able to attract more investors than the rest of us, and so on and so forth.
The people of Nigeria continue to weigh in on the benefits and the curses of the oil boom. For Lagosians, time will tell if liquid gold will translate into economic prosperity for the average man. I'm Didi Akinyelure. Thank you for watching, and see you next time on Destination Lagos.